If you buy a shell from us, or you already have a pre-existing shell, and you buy the wrap with PSA, there's a number of different options you can trim the edges. If the shell does not have edges, which this one does, one option is to wrap the shell like this and then machine it with a router, the edges and the wrap at the same time, which is a viable option. If you want us to do the edges like this shell, this is actually a customer shell that we're doing, and the pre-cut wrap with PSA, it is a good idea to trim the wrap down approximately 3/8 of an inch, which we're going to show you how to do that with our wrap trimmer, or there's a couple different ways. Another way you can do it. The main reason is because we cut the wrap, and this is a snare drum, with the snare bed, the wrap actually overlaps the snare bed, and you want to make sure that's clear. So one thing to remember is if you wrap the shell and that first section is not square, so the last section ends up crooked, you will need to trim the wrap with a scissors. So however you trim your wrap down from the edge, you're dealing with a straight surface. This straight surface is the bearing edge. For example, if this wrap was crooked, you want to take a scissors and just trim it just a little bit so you have that flat edge. So when you trim the wrap down, you're dealing with a straight surface. I told you before we did end up a little bit, about 1/16 of an inch crooked here, which is no big deal. Since it is on the snare bed, our wrap trimmer will ride along this flat edge. Okay, but if you do have to trim it, you can just take a pair of scissors like this and just cut any extra off. Make sure you don't touch the edge. We're going to use the Drum Foundry wrap trimmer. This is our shop version. It's been used many times. It's still in great working condition. And we put a piece of cardboard down so when you are doing this, you're not scraping the bearing edges against steel. And just going to go around a little bit here. I promise I won't narrate this whole thing. When you go over the seam I should say, with this, you want to take a little bit slower. And increasing the pressure a little bit more each time you go around. And as soon as that groove is set in there, you can actually go a little bit faster. You can hear the wrap cutting. You can check it here a second. We just trimmed through. The best place to lift is at the seam because seam tape is not at full strength, and it is important that you trim the wrap as soon as possible after you wrap it, because once the PSA and the seam tape is at full strength, there is a possibility it will take up some outer veneer of the shell because it is strong. So I always find that if you just kind of quickly peel it back, it will not leave any residue. If it does leave any residue, again, it's not at full strength. Like there's a little bit right here. You can just take your thumb or index finger and just peel it off. That's about the only residue that was on there. The rest came off with the wrap. If you do not want to purchase a Drum Foundry wrap trimmer,
loser,
which
Jim highly recommends,
which I highly recommend, you can take a utility knife and scribe it. This is another way to trim the wrap. Obviously a little bit cheaper way, but the results can vary. You're actually going to just hold the utility knife firm and just gently scribe the shell like this. Now this space is approximately 1/4 of an inch. If you want 3/8 of an inch or 1/2 inch, you obviously have to fur this up and somehow secure it. It's very important that you scribe lightly and do many passes so the line stays straight, and that will work in lieu of a Drum Foundry wrap trimmer. Here's the finished product. Both edges are trimmed approximately 3/8 down using the Drum Foundry wrap trimmer. We did align the seam either where the butt or the throw-off is. Now, you can lay out your drum shell and put the seam, hide it under a lug, really wherever you want. We just did it on the snare bed where the butt or the throw-off would be. Again, this is wrapping a shell with a Drum Foundry PSA, purchased from us, pre-cut wrap. We'll laminate the PSA and seam tape on for you, and Drum Foundry Keller maple shell with edges. And hopefully this was helpful. Peace. Do one section that's like...
The opposite, where you got your crack hanging out.
All right, what you're gonna want to do? You're gonna want to take your utility knife, and you're gonna want to take your wrap, and you're gonna want to cut it straight.